And he also works casually as a technical editor for Pearson Education, O'Reilly, and Backstop Media Publications. He's written several research papers and presented on matters security the world over. So with that background, it's probably no surprise that he lists as one of his passions as writing articles and everything that's technology related. But he also loves cycling when the weather and work permits, and spending time outdoors. But for the moment, we have him indoors. Thank you very much.
So we got some time at our hands that the previous presenter gracefully, led us to this extra time. So I'm going to take a little advantage, if that's okay, of the spare time at our hands now that lunch is not being served any sooner. And I don't really want to be the bad guy between yourself and lunch. Let's get started. So first of all, how are you? Morning. That's not energetic. Morning. That's like it. Perfect. Good audience. Thank you. So yeah, first of all, thank you very much, Write the Docs, to give this opportunity to present on this forum and on the stage. It's truly something that's really close to my heart. And being out and about and writing books for, don't know what, maybe my last book was published in 2016. The first was published in 2012, was quite an undertaking, about 700 pages, just by myself. And I decided I'm not going to do it again, but I did it anyways. But then my spouse wasn't really all excited about it. She was like, if you do another one, I'm going to sulk you. So there you go. So that might be one of the warnings once you start writing and getting into your first gig of writing a book. But then we'll come across many more. There is pleasantries and then there is obnoxiousness. Both sides of the world come together, but then you get the best of it. Without any further ado, you can follow me on LinkedIn, or if you want to connect, I'm more than happy to have more connections and reach out to like-minded people always. No agendas. That's the first thing I learned during my career is the moment you put an agenda, the audience goes off because they can perhaps form a perception about what you're going to present. So let's keep it a little mysterious, shall we? I'll get right into the idea of you've started thinking about, I have had this thought, and I'm the kind of person who, excuse me, who would rather moving on the stage. I'm not really a stationary person, I'm a more energetic one, just moving around. I do have that.
Oh yes.
I just need to
run wild.
Give me a second, I'll make myself fully mobile. Just 1 second and we should be good to go. Tools of trade. Am I still on? Am I loud enough? Is it okay if I speak now? Yeah, kinda.
I think it's not on.
I didn't switch it off. It shows as green. I don't see. Did someone have pun intended? There we go. It's on. I think this is still better. I'll just stick to the home base. Well, an idea can be worth 1,000 words. So you've always had that sound in your head, in your brain, telling yourself, would it be worth the while if I went out 100% all out and did something more than just maybe a casual article or maybe a small blog? Because that's something which, as writers, we all tend to do is go out and about and start writing, putting our thoughts on the paper. But then, can I make it more meaningful? Can I make it more impactful by sharing my thoughts with a larger audience out there? Now, when you think about an article in a newspaper, what do you think about it is, I've read it, great, wonderful. It's going to rubbish anyways. It's not going to stay with me unless I cut it out and frame it. So how about the idea of making your words immortal? That's what I was told when I wrote my first book by a distinguished engineer at Cisco, because I used to work for Cisco back in the day. He said, "Your words have made you immortal. You might leave the world, but your words will stay." So that was a really, really impactful statement that just took me, in a different dimension altogether. Putting all the hard work down and, sweat and blood, everything, that one statement just made for all of it. I transcended, basically that's what happened. Next dimension altogether. So, the first thing we need to understand is nobody can force you to write. Nobody has to force you to write, because the moment that happens, that passion, that flair dies. Because now you're doing something you were never, courageous about, you were never going to dig in and do it. The passion needs to come from within. So back in the day, I reached out to my manager and said, "Look, I've done everything you have told me to do. And I think it's about time I started doing more than just research papers." So I used to write research papers for IEEE. And I think the only way I can really touch the larger community and impact it positively is if I went out and wrote a manuscript. And in a very technical terms, we call it a manuscript, which is eventually, once it's copy edited, copyrighted, it becomes a book. So I really want to write a book. He said, "That's okay, but you're not getting any time off for that. That's all on you. It's your undertaking. How do you want to do it?" So at that point in time, I was trying to gather more inspiration around why should I write. It's a big undertaking. If I ever were to write, it's like carrying a mountain just by yourself. And these words are some of the first few motivational words that I came across. Can anybody guess who would have written this? Or who spoke them? Any guesses in the room? It's a pop quiz. No? Someone who's really, really famous in American history.
Jefferson.
What's that?
Jefferson.
Jefferson. Close enough? Not quite close enough. Franklin, someone said? Bingo. Benjamin Franklin. That's it. So these were the most inspiring words back then, and I still recall back those, we call it nostalgia. That was nostalgia in making. Years after, I will still refer to these words. Now, I'm the kind of person who will not read to the presentation. I'll share everything outside of it because your eyes can read it, but I'll just try and overlay that with what I have went through, my experiences, because that's where I think the value is, not reading from the presentation at all. So, my mantra for success, you got an idea? Nurture it. Whatever your idea is, just go out, just blow yourself out and make sure you do the right thing to yourself. You just need to lay your hands on the ground and say, I am going to do it. If I don't do it, it won't happen. Nobody's going to do that for me. Now, these are my words, these are not from Benjamin Franklin. So, what occurs as an idea is just that thought for that second. It might click, it might not click. It might be positive, it might not be so positive looking at your current circumstances, but then who else than yourself to say to your own self, your soul, yes, this is something I want to do. I want to get engaged into this. This is something which will define my life from this point onwards, and that's pretty much it. You've just taken a decision for yourself. You plunged into it. The other big mantra for my life is, unless you have done something for a thought you ever had in your life at a point in time, you haven't done anything. You haven't reached to a point you can say, I did justification to that thought. So 10 years down the line, maybe 20 years down the line, you will think, my goodness, I could have done that back then, and how positively it would have impacted me as a persona, as a person, where I could have reached. You know, many a times we see successful people, we see their success. What we did not see, or we probably just want to turn a blind eye to, is how did he or she become so successful? They did not do that in a fortnight or overnight. They did years and years. It was all hard work that just went in. And I'm not giving a lecture to you. What I'm trying to say is, unless you put your mind to your thoughts and make them happen, it's not going to happen. And 10 years down the line, you look back in time and say, I wish I could have done it. Well, now's the time, do it. So, how do you take a go at your dream of writing your first book? Now, I'm not just going to stop at your first book, that's a teaser. Your first book is just the beginning, it's not the end. It never would be. Trust me when I say that. So you can again read what's out there, but eventually what you want to do is, if you have an idea you think is a viable idea as per your own self, you know, the person next to me can say, that's BS, that's not going to fly. That's fine, I think it's viable. I think this thing will impact people out there positively. I'll go for it. I'll take a kill. No matter what this person or that person has to say, because there are not too many positive people always around. There is one too many, but then not too many always. So don't take what others have to say literally. Take it as an input. Gauge as to what their experiences would have been, what their perspectives would have been, and still see if this is something that you want to work for. It's not something that defines them, it is something you are doing that will define you. Do we agree? You must have done something crazy that people thought, you know, as an individual, everybody goes through that one moment in time where they say, look, I'm going to do this. People might think I'm a fool. People might think he's a joker. But I'm still going to do it. How do I care about that? That's it. That's what defined you in a very positive way. You know, you look back in your life at that point in time and say, that's it. That's what I did. It's not just about myself. It's about what you did had an impact on the community, on the people around you. More than that, globally. If you write an article, how many people do you think is going to read that article in newspaper? Not all publications are international anyways, and it's going to rubbish anyways. If you write a book, it's going to stay at the shelf for X number of years, and even after that, people will still remember you wrote that book. This is the message you wanted to convey with the book. This is what I could get out of it. And that's really what impacted their lives positively, and that's what it's all about. It's not about you, it's about them. Let's get the facts straight, yes? Let's keep this interactive. If you have any questions, stop me anytime. Happy to answer. Otherwise, this will be a monologue. Don't really want it in a black and white. Has to be colors. So what I did, like I said, I started in, this is my journey, and I'm just trying to share my experience here with you. It wasn't an easy one. So I reached out to Pearson Education after talking to my manager, and he said, like I said, I'm not going to give you any time off, you just need to do it in your own time. And own time is your spouse is not so happy about it. You're not taking her out to cinema, you're not taking her out for traveling, no traveling no more. And then she's like, what's this? This is creeping in bad. But anyways, you have to handle it. And again, it's by the support of your family that you get to do it. You don't just get to do it as an individual. trust me when I say that. You can put all the hard work you really ever want to do, but unless your family and your friends support you emotionally and physically, help you in day-to-day chores, that's not going to fly. Whatever hard work you put in is just going to crumble. It's going to just fall down, Lego blocks, kicked out of the board. So what I did back in the day, I started my journey in October 2010 after my contract, my proposal. So let me take it a step back. So May 2010, I reached out to Pearson Education and said, I have this idea that I want to take out to the market. This has been a topic of discussion forever in the IT industry. Nobody has really done anything, I would say, solid around or concrete around that idea. I want to put it together and make sure that people can benefit from it. And this was around writing a book which brought the security side of the world and the voice over IP, or VoIP as we call it, side of the world together, and securing IP telephony. So people used to talk about it, they were fearsome about the other side of things. It's like, I don't care what they do. I do my business and I go to home. And I don't know how to do this, so I'll not touch that. So it's about building a bridge between two distinct worlds or two distinct realms per se. The editor came back and said, look, I'm happy for you to do it, but I think we have a long way before we actually sign up a contract. First things first, you're an Indian, and I don't trust your English. I was like, what? I've been working for Cisco here in the US for like 4 years now. And I've always worked for multinational organizations. How come you not trust my English? Is it something I have to establish upon, or I have to prove that? I'm happy to have a conversation. Let's meet up in a cafe, in a casual setting, and no. Out of your proposal, so I would have submitted a proposal which took me a couple of months to write. Out of that proposal, write me the first 4 chapters, let me evaluate on that and come back to you. I was like, hell no, that's not happening. Why would I write out 4 chapters for you, burn out the months of my life, which I could possibly out and about eating popcorn and watching movies, just to establish myself? You want to do this? I'll write 20 odd pages for you. Deal or no deal? There was pin drop silence for like a few weeks. Nothing heard back. I was like, this guy is not going to sign me up. I don't think like that's going to happen. And meanwhile, I shared all my credentials with him, my engineering degree, my master's in business degree, everything else. So I said, what else do you want from me? I mean, I'm happy to meet you. I'm happy to meet your team. And, establish myself as someone who can actually get this through to the end. And eventually he came back and said, let's do it, 20 pages, you got your shot, take your best shot. Took me 3 weeks writing those 20 pages, getting them reviewed, getting them out to him. Pin drop silence for another few weeks. I was like, shit, what have I done? Have I messed it up? Then came through the contract, he said, let's sign it, let's go for it. So you got a 1.5 years to write it. It's about 700 pages. That was my first gig. And a 1.5 years to write it, and we'll go out to the market. So eventually 1.5 years is the publication date when it is on the shelf. So working backwards, you have 1 year and 3 months in entirety, including your technical reviews, your copywriting, going back and fixing stuff and everything. And you for sure are going to market it like hell in Cisco, because this is a Cisco-oriented book. So I was like, okay. That, I don't know how big it appears, but securing Cisco IP telephony, that was my first gig. 700 pages in entirety, black and white, on paper. That's all my thought process. The first month, when it went live, eventually in August of 2012, and there was an imminent delay that happened because Cisco decided they wanted to remarket everything with a new name, with a new version. I was like, wow, fabulous. I was about to release this and now have to rework everything else again. So another 6 months into it, so that took me around 2 years. During those 2 years, I was doing my day job, obviously. Like told by my management, he would care less. And so it was 9 to 6 for me at the job. And I would start writing at about 9 p.m., keep writing about 5 a.m., go back to sleep. That was my schedule during the week. Weekends were at least 16 hours a day on Saturday and Sunday, both at writing. So that's pretty much what my 2 years of time during writing my first book was. So, like I said, it's not all pretty out there, but then it just pays to see your work live, and the kind of inputs you get from the larger community is, that's pretty darn awesome. So I decided that was it. I've written a book, I'm published, I'm going to stop. Cisco Press came back and said, well, we would like you to do something else for us. Since you were, it just so happened, coincidentally, I was the first certified Cisco globally, the first recognized certified engineer on a certain certification. And till date, there are about 60,000 individuals throughout the globe who are certified. And I was on that specific technology realm. I was the first one globally. So they came back and said, we want you to write a book on this topic. Would you write that for us? I was like, where is this coming from? I haven't even signed up for that, and I'm in no mood to write. It's just been a year that I've been of the previous one, and it'll take a lot to commit to it. But they convinced me. I was self-convinced. I want to do another one. So I did another one, and this came out. This was in 2014. This was about 8 months of effort into the book. It was just an ebook. It did not publish as a soft cover copy. The first one was the first soft cover copy. Then I decided I want to just dial back a little bit and maybe just co-author books. So we did another one in 2015, and the last one, like I said earlier, was in 2016. So 4 books. And now I've really dialed back a little bit because I want to see my kids growing, not having to depend after another 10 years and say, well, I just missed that sweet time when they used to listen to me. Now they no longer listen to me no more. And they have passed after 10 years, Dad, Mom, who are you? My friends are my bunch and you're the odd ones out, so stay at an arm's length. I've heard that happening to people, so before that happens to me, just dial a little bit back. I'll have more time in your future writing more. But meanwhile, I'm doing a lot more other things with Pearson and O'Reilly. If people have heard about it, Wiley Press, O'Reilly. And then there is a small publication in US, which is Backstop Media. A lot has been happening, and I'll share that with you as we go. So, like I did mention, it's not easy at all. Once you sign up, what you're also getting into is something beyond your 9 to 5. So my point is, everybody in this room and potentially, every working individual, even moms, non-work, people who don't work, stay at home. Actually, stay at home moms are heroes. They do a 24/7 job. They are in a much difficult position than working moms. But huge respect to moms anyways, hats off. Even beyond your 9 to 5, what are you getting into? You're not going to get your time to write your book during your 9 to 5 year. Your boss is just shoulder surfing you. Is this girl doing their job? No, let's have a performance review. All of that nonsense. Not that it is, but then it seems like, doesn't it? So, beyond your 9 to 5, what you really want to do, 10 years from now, maybe 5 years from now, look back and say, and that used to be inspiration coming from me to my team is, do you really want to be the crowd, or do you want to be the one who stands out from the crowd and say, this is what I've done, not just as an individual. At the end of the day, the kind of impact it did make on the larger community. How many people outside of your workplace really knew you? It's your friends. how many people can you reach out by writing a book? How many friends can you actually make? How many colleagues or acquaintances can you actually make by writing a book? You can't even imagine. You know, you step into a room, the guys say, aren't you the one, and this is coming from personal experiences, no puns intended, aren't you the guy who wrote that book? Yeah. Okay. Well, we are all set with any questions. Can you just explain this part to us so an hour-long conversation becomes 10 minutes long? Because they just trust you. Once you walk in the room, they know you have done this, so it's done and dusted from their perspective. They trust whom they are talking to. You don't have to establish trust anymore. That has been done. And these are, the book is your vehicle for that trust to be established. And that is established not just between you and the customers, it also establishes trust with many others whom you probably just walk on the street and they potentially recognize you, has happened to me many a times. And just bump into you and say, I saw your face on Amazon, aren't you this guy? Well, I look older now, yes I am. They're looking pretty darn young. But yeah, so I think that's the real value out there. You know, people bump into you, they know you, you don't have to introduce yourself. Not that you're a superhero, you can imagine yourself to be, that's not bad, but you're not, let's admit. But it's a good feeling, going into someone, getting known, having been established already is a darn good feeling. So that's about it. And of course, you know, what will happen to me as if I become a published author, and eventually, like I said, without your family it just falls apart. Who's going to do my chores? After my 9 to 5 I have to go back home, prepare my dinner. I help my spouse prepare my dinner if you don't want to get whacked. And eventually, who is going to do all of that? So that's where you need your family, that's where you need your friends to support you. And there are issues outside of your usual lifespan, which you will come across. You know, we are all human beings, we run into those issues. But then you don't have to just handle them by yourself, you trust others to do it for you as well. Okay. So once you start thinking about the whole process, the first obvious question is, who is going to be my publisher? How do I approach them? There is no silver bullet to that, let me tell you that right now. There can be 100 publishers in the market. Now there are publishers online, Packet Publishing for example. You just go to them and say, I have this manuscript, I want to convert it into the book. They'll do that for you. They'll even provide you tech editors, copywriting editors, and the likes of those. But then, you have to market your stuff yourself. You're not going to just sell it on Amazon. You won't become, New York's bestseller. That's not going to happen. That didn't happen to me. It's not going to happen to you unless you do really write something which is absolutely touching to everybody's heart, which is not technology writing. Not everybody is technical. That's the first obvious question you're going to run into. Who's my publisher? How do I reach out to a publication house? And obviously, even if I reached out to a publication house, why would they trust me over someone who has been with them for years and years and not just revert to their default writer or their default authors, so set of authors if they were co-authoring for a while now. So eventually, all these questions, like I said, there is no silver bullet, there is no single solution. But you really have to trust in yourself, you have to trust the process. Once you have an idea, start reaching out to publication houses locally in Australia, for one, and then globally as well, because where your book is published does not matter. It has an ISBN number now, which is international. And just FYI, so there are two ISBN numbers, 10 and 13. So these are internationally identified ISBN numbers. Every publisher, for every single publication, even if it's a report, it's not a book, they will give you those ISBN numbers. So yes. And lastly, can someone steal my manuscript? If I start writing, can my publisher just flip on me and go to the other side and say, well, buddy, you are more established, just to pretty much get destroyed once you start on this specific endeavor? And I can bet my life on it, you will experience issues in your personal life, but that's going to end with the time. Your book is going to remain immortal. Remember that. It's going to impact many lives, not just yours. Since I'm being rushed, the key point is, when you're writing, write as if no one is reading, no one is watching you. And make sure that your thoughts are being written as you will see a reader reading it, not yourself writing it. I know what I'm writing. How a reader would perceive it is more important. It's way, way more important, because some writers fail just because they wrote what they knew they were writing. They never thought about, as if I were to pick up my own book and read it, can I actually make sense of it, knowing I'm not a SME or a subject matter expert at this subject? Can I make sense of that? Maybe not. So you need to dial back. You really need to dial back and say, yes, I'm going to do it as a reader. Write it, read it. A single page, in my own experience, can take up to 2 hours to write. 1 page. And we're talking about like 700 pages. And that's outside of your work-life balance. So it's quite an endeavor you're eventually signing up for. So yeah, but it's worth it. So it doesn't really end with the first book. There is a lot more. You can have your own blog, which you possibly already have today. Put your works in there. Start connecting with like-minded people. People will reach out to you for interviews. I did maybe 20 odd interviews, stage shows, within Cisco, outside Cisco, with partners. And then, obviously, writing should become part of your DNA. It shouldn't be something you should be thinking about doing, you should be just doing it. It becomes a second instinct. So write research papers, write blogs, vlogs, whatever excites you, whatever connects you with the larger community, whatever makes you feel you're really contributing. It's not just, again, it's not about me, it's about us, it's about all of us. Your first book is just a starting. Once you're addicted to writing, like I said, I thought I'd stop at my first, I did not. I went ahead. I've dialed back a bit now, but again, that's going to pick up, that's for sure. It's always in. And I keep on doing, at any point in time with my day in, day out, 9 to 5, there is a ton of other work that I'm doing with Pearson Education, O'Reilly. So I just did a book for Google SRE, Site Reliability Engineering. I reviewed it for them. And a ton of Cisco Press books or other books I'm reviewing day in, day out. And that just keeps me alive, that just keeps me excited, because that's the kind of work I really want to do. 9 to 5, that's my bread and butter, but then what keeps my soul alive on fire is writing. That's pretty much it. See if this excites you. If it doesn't, find your passion. If it's vlogging, find that. If it's publishing video courses, that's Udemy. That's where I started more recently. I haven't published any video courses, but just courses. That's probably the next point in evolution, as technology is catching up. So this is what I've had a true trust, these two statements. Pessimists are usually right, optimists are usually wrong.